is a video about how to remove the rear gate trim from a Subaru Outback station wagon. This applies to years 2005 through 2009. Now, why would you want to remove the rear trim? Well, probably the most common reason would be to work on the wiring harness, which runs all around the entire rear gate. You might be working on the rear gate garnish, or the rear gate outer handle, or the rear gate lock actuator, or the rear gate latch. But to get to those things, you have to remove some or all of this trim. The rear trim consists of 4 parts. The rear gate lower trim, this piece here. The rear gate upper trim, which is this piece across the top. And there are 2 rear gate pillars here and here. The rear gate pillars have to come off first. This piece and this piece have to come off first because they lock the upper and lower pieces in place. The pillar trim is held on by 2 clips. We will now proceed to take the trim off. In order to remove the rear trim, they recommend starting with these side columns here. Now, each one of these is held on with 2 clips, so we'll remove those. Okay, I've managed to pry the first of those 2. And the other one. Okay, after much wrestling with it, I finally popped it off. 2 little clips in there holding it in. Now, here and here. It was harder to get off than it should have been. With these rear gate column trim pieces, the clips, there's 2 of them, they're actually integrated into the piece. They're not separate. And they're really pretty difficult to get off. I couldn't just pull it off, I had to pry it off. This is the rear gate column trim on the passenger side. I found that probably the easiest way to get this piece off, it's pretty hard to get off, is to actually start here and pry underneath that end. Like that, okay? And that gets the first clip popped off. Once you have this end loose, then you can kind of then pull the rest of it. That seems to be the easiest way to get it off. With the lift gate pillar trim removed, the upper and lower trim pieces can now be removed. They've now been unlocked. We're going to start with the lower trim piece. Now we will move to the bottom of the lower trim piece. And this is the inner lift handle. And on the inner lift handle, you see a little plastic cover right there. Underneath that plastic cover are 2 screws that need to be removed. Get a screwdriver under it and sort of pry it open. Trying to hold the camera with one hand. Okay. And it's hinged on the back, and it exposes those 2 screws. These are simply removed with a Phillips head screwdriver. Okay, now I've gone ahead and finished removing those 2 screws. Next, there are 4 clips along the lower part of the lower trim, and they are hidden by the weather stripping. So you just sort of peel back the weather stripping, you'll see them. There's one, and there's one, there's one, there's one. Those clips are best removed with a clip removal tool. I pulled back this weather stripping a little bit to kind of expose it a little better. Now you might start the job with just a little flathead screwdriver, just to sort of get up underneath that lip a little bit. Okay, I've got the clip removal tool here. And out it comes. Moving to the next clip, just sort of gently pulling back the weather stripping a little bit, and we can see that clip right there. And I'm trying to, there we go. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. And here we are at number 4, the last one. And these you got to be a little careful of on the end because they've got these little clips that hold on the weather stripping. Okay, I went ahead and reattached that little clip to the weather stripping. The weather stripping is all intact. Now we can pull the lower trim back a little bit. Okay, good. Now we go back inside, and here at the top of the trim, there's a clip here, and there's one on the opposite side as well. So we're going to use our clip removal tool on those. Okay, and out you go. And on the opposite side, we have another one. Okay, clip removal tool in place. Just holding my finger over it so it doesn't fly off. There we go. Now, with all those clips out, you can basically now just pull this piece off. There are several clips underneath here. We're just going to give it a good yank. There it goes. Here's that piece removed. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips. Also some fiberglass, so be careful. You don't want to touch that without gloves on. And here we are with that piece removed. Now I'm going to flip it around here. So now with that piece removed, we have access to the rear wiper motor and to the rear lock and latch actuator and the inner part of the external lift handle, and of course our tail lights and some of the circuitry for our windshield, for our rear windshield heater. So if you're working on those things, this is as much as the trim as you need to remove. Now, if you're going to be working on the wiring harness, you're also going to have to remove the top piece as well. This piece is removed by just basically tugging on it and it will come off. I've sort of loosened it already, and unfortunately I managed to break that one. The other ones remained intact. But that's it. Now this exposes the upper portion of the wiring harness. To reinstall the liftgate trim, it's basically just doing what we did in reverse, but we shall quickly go through it ourselves just to illustrate it. We will put the trim back on the rear liftgate, starting with this piece, which was the top piece. It has 4 clips. Now, one of the clips was broken when I pulled it off. They just sort of pop out like that. You can see the top of it just shattered. And you can purchase replacements. Okay, that's in there. So we need to take this piece, okay, push it in on the driver's side, and give a little push on the passenger side. Okay, that piece is in. Next, we put on the large central piece, the central lower piece of trim on the rear liftgate door. The camera is now looking almost straight up at the elevated liftgate door. We now got the clips popped in place along the upper row. On the driver's side, we have a clip that pops in right here. And on the passenger side, we have a clip that pops in here. Now at the bottom part of this rear piece, we've got to get these little tabs underneath the weather stripping. There's 4 of them. The liftgate is still elevated, and we need to push those clips in along there. We will now put the 4 clips back along the lower trim. Sort of peeling it back here a little bit. Here we go. There's one. Give a little shove, and in it goes. And another one. And another one. And the last one. Okay. And we'll just straighten out our weather stripping. And there we go. Good. Weather stripping's all back up. Straightened out. And the last thing are the 2 screws that go in there. Okay, we're putting in one of those 2 screws. With both of those screws now in, you can then pop down this little lid and cover it up. Now that rear piece is now completely in place. Now we put on the rear pillar trim on the driver's side. It's just held on by, two clips. Just have to sort of push it in place, get it lined up and push it in place. Rear pillar trim on the passenger side. Just kind of line it up. And here we have pretty much all of it put together. That concludes this simple tutorial on how to remove and then reinstall the trim from the liftgate of the Subaru Outback station wagon.